to unpack this issue just a little bit, though. There's been a lot said about A20, A10, open space, TDRs, conservation easements, etc. So I'd like to kind of separate these into different issues. Let's talk about A20 to A10 first. Now I went through a map and went through every bit of this, and what I calculate is that the additional potential homes would reduce, would decrease the overall lot size, or would, if we did this, it would take it down to an average lot size of 11.8 acres per lot. It's currently at, no, it would take it down to 9.3, and it's currently at 11.8. We'd have an average decrease of about 2.5 in lot size. That's not a lot from currently what's there. I think, so when we look at this, we have to look at how much, what's the reality? And again, I appreciate the sentiment that we have to kind of take out, we have to set aside the emotion. We just have to look at the facts. Now, when we look at zoning, there are three areas that I look at: public health, public safety, and the general welfare. Under the public health, this change would not require new sewer lines or sewer lines whatsoever in the Northfields. It would not require water lines. It would not have an impact on our trash pickup. It wouldn't really have any impact on our air quality. That number of homes is not going to have that impact. And the increase would not have a dramatic impact on our roads. And for our public safety, wouldn't have an additional impact for our sheriff. And quite frankly, the general welfare, there'd be no effect. You know, I look at the requirements for changing from the zone, and there would be no conflict between the general plan and its goals and policies. So it would still fit within our general plan goals and policies. We heard, I know we received a letter today, but I've heard testimony from multiple people who were also on that committee, and it was the recommendation then that this zoning be changed to an A10. And I believe they would look at the same issues that I looked at and look at what the already average lot size is. A lot of people try to ignore the fact that there is already building right out there. I hear it all the time. They think that somehow that what we have out there is just going to stay just like it is. That no one's building out there, so therefore they never will. That's not true. There is a right already with many of those lots in the Northfields. It's called a lot of record, and they can prove it and they can do it. Again, I've never hidden from this fact. Everybody knows it. It has no effect on me, but my father-in-law has a small lot, 7.8 acres. There's a lot of records in Northfields. This change has no effect on him whatsoever, but he looks at it and says, how's that fair? He could build, in fact, he did go so far as to get a building permit. He can do it. Now, how's that fair that he has a 7.8 acre lot, and he can build, but a guy with 20 or 30 acres can only build one house on his, or 20 acres can only build a house on one? That doesn't make any sense to me. I think when you look at the average lot size, there's basically a fundamental inequity between the zoning, what the A20 zoning overlays over everybody. It doesn't really look at what that existing property right already is and what is already there. I think it makes sense that as a matter of fairness for these people that we look at an A10 zone. And like I said, it would not have a dramatic effect on the overall average lot size. You know, I come back to this idea of open space, and I've heard a lot about it. And I think, you know, I drive down Coyote Lane every day, and I look out at the Northfields, and I, like everybody else, I love to look out at those Northfields. I come home every day from Salt Lake, and I drive down 40, and I too love to come into the valley and see that open space, and I love to look at it. But what I don't have is a sense that I own that, or that they owe me that view. They do not owe me that view. When I bought my property here in Heber City, the title company didn't send Larry Gertz a check for providing me views, or any of the other property owners in the Northfields. I did not pay for that view. And I think every reasonable person who buys a piece of property someplace understands that it's natural that we have growth. We've had growth. This valley has been dividing and subdividing since the first person walked into the valley. It's just a fact of life. Now, are there ways that we can preserve the open space? Absolutely. There are. But we can't do it on the backs of the few. We cannot preserve it through a zoning which is merely taking from one and giving to another on their backs. And I can't see doing that. Now, I'll get to the TDRs and the conservation easements in a second. But basically what we have currently right now is a situation where we've socialized the benefit and privatized the cost. Now, if we want to change that, we need to socialize the cost too. And I'm all for that. You know, I look at these issues of TDRs and conservation easements, and I'm going to tell you, TDRs, there's a lot of people, you know, they want to sing their praises, but there's a lot of things that people haven't really stopped to look at about these TDRs. You know, we have identified the sending area. That's the Northfields. That's the area where we're sending development, and we're going to place what would otherwise potentially occur there, and we're going to send it somewhere else. And that's called the receiving area. Now, I don't know about you, but if they try and put that receiving area next to my house, I'm going to protest it. And I don't think a lot of people have thought about that in order to establish that receiving area, you've got to have willing property owners. And not only that, you have to have willing property owners next to them. Because quite frankly, if I'm in cobblestone and somebody tries to plant down next to me a whole bunch more density than I think is going to come when I bought that property, I'm going to protest that receiving area. Okay, I don't think people have really thought through the potential problems of trying to establish that receiving area. Now, so the more equitable arrangement, obviously, is a bond. And that would pay for conservation easements. There's two things still about that bond. That is still voluntary. The people who want to take money for their conservation easement or the property, that isn't done by eminent domain. That's a voluntary act. So if they still think that they could make more money, they're not going to be compelled to have to sell their easement on the property, number one. And number two, I have my doubts that that bond would pass. Because I think when you start really asking people to put their money where their mouth is, I think we'll see a different story. Now, I'd be more than happy to see a group of people get together and go put a public petition together to go start a drive to put one on the ballot. Great. We'll see if it passes. But in the meantime, there's one thing to remember. The action to go from 820 to 810 is mutually exclusive, is not mutually exclusive to being able to do a TDR or a bond. It is not mutually exclusive. It will not preclude that from still going forward. And in the meantime, we've taken care of an inequity, and maybe we've just shot across the bow. It won't have a big effect. But maybe if it gets some people off the stump to say, you know what, maybe I will pony up to help these people preserve this land in the Northfields. Because we shouldn't be asking for this to be on the backs of other people. You know, I just don't see why we have that sense of entitlement that somebody owes us that view. That's my thoughts.